it yet.
Oh, I saved it as a PDF, if that helps.
Oh, thank you. Yes, it does. It helps a whole lot. I'm going from freezing to hot.
Yeah, let me just check and see what we're set at here, but this phone is sometimes so funny. It says 77.
Well, it's not bad. It's pretty comfortable. It's, it's just my microclimate. You
I
can,
have the same issue.
yes. Up. What's your trip? Admit.
Hello.
Somehow I can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
Still can't hear you.
Oh, I got the mute off.
Let's get our.
Do you have me muted?
Sylvia,
Oh, is this what I have to do?
I don't know if that will help his audio, but.
Can you hear me now?
Now I gotcha.
Oh,
Yay.
right.
That's good. We hear you loud and clear.
Am I early?
You're a little early. That's okay.
Well, that's because the damn meeting reminder said, get busy and sign and log on.
Did it really say that?
Well, it didn't say it in so many words. It just said, don't be late. Don't hesitate.
Yeah, well, it's a bell curve. We have early birds and then we have people who are late.
Well, and then you have people that don't show up at all.
Yeah, we have them too. They don't show up on the bell curve.
Well, that's that can be me because sometimes I get double and triple booked, even at 11:30 on a Tuesday.
Oh, yeah. So you're popular, in other words?
Well, I don't know how to say no.
Oh, I see. Yep.
No, I've only got 3 meetings today.
3. Okay. But can you go to all of them from the convenience of your office there?
Let's see. One of it is a cart meeting, which is at 3:30. I believe I can do that. And then the tonight the big one is the school board meeting in Derry. So that's going to be in person.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah,
Really?
it'll be interesting, because they're going to explain their reopen the school plan.
Are you on the school board?
No, I'm on the town council
Okay, right.
and the planning board.
Okay.
But I'm interested because the schools are they're between a rock and a hard spot right now.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah.
They put out their plan. I think it was last week, and of course, people ask me, "What do I think?" And I says, "Well, it sounds like there are acceptable risks for opening the schools," and they says, "Well, it should be risk-free to open the schools." And I go, well, nothing is risk-free. You can minimize the risk, which I believe they've done. Of course, they'll have to answer a bunch of questions tonight. So it will be interesting because it's like wearing masks. There is no middle ground. You either hate masks or you love masks.
Well, it's not that I love wearing a mask. It's that I do it out of respect for my coworkers.
Well, that's good.
And my coworkers do it out of respect for me. It's not that we love a mask. It's that we respect each other and we respect
All right. Well,
everyone
let me.
else.
I guess I presented that in the wrong manner. People accept mask or they don't accept mask. How's that?
I suppose. What's not to accept?
I don't really want to get into that discussion.
Okay. Fair.
I'm not a mask denier, but like I said, I don't want to really get into that discussion because it's no one's going to be happy when it's over.
Sophia, I was thinking you could ask if he knew Frank Markowitz.
Oh yeah, let's switch the subject.
All right.
We want to do just a few seconds. It should be a moment of silence for Frank Barkowitz.
Oh yeah.
And didn't know if any of the dairy team wanted to say a little something.
Hopefully John and Jeff will be there. I knew Frank, but I didn't know him well because I just recently was appointed to the planning board. So my previous experience on the planning board was probably late 90s, early 2000s. And that was before the Frank era, I believe.
Oh, okay. So you didn't know him that well.
No. And I'm a busy guy, so unless we're serving on the same board or whatever, I probably wouldn't have known him, you know.
Right. Yeah, he happened to be a commissioner for 6 years.
Yeah. 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 Yep, we got 3 people reappointed to the commission. We've still got 1 opening and 1 alternate, I believe. So
Hello,
Hello, is that Peter?
this is Ray.
Oh, Ray. Hi, Ray.
How are you?
I'm really good.
I just enjoy meeting like this.
Yeah.
We're glad to have you.
Well, we're certainly glad to have you. Have you been busy, Ray? What have you been up to?
Oh, I'm still doing my little part-time work and stuff. So that's
Yeah.
been keeping me busy, you know. I don't work too hard anymore, you know. I'm going to be 75 next week, so I take it easy now.
I get that completely.
But I enjoy it. It gives me something to do. I stay in contact with people and everything, so it helps out.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. Yeah, I just hired a mason for my home. So I have an old New Englander with a funky granite rock foundation that needs to be chinked in, and I'd have to have my chimney repointed. So masons are hard to come by anymore.
Well, it's got a lot of work around, you know, around here especially. So that's what I have in my house. My house was built about 1870, the
Yeah.
main part of it. And I have, you know, stone, granite block for the top of the foundation, and I got miscellaneous stones for the rest of the foundation, and it's been like that since it's been built.
Yeah. I can appreciate that.
But we got sandy soil here, so it doesn't really get wet downstairs. It's always been dry.
Oh, wow, good for you.
And I've added a couple additions too, so it's, that's got concrete foundations to it and everything, so. Overall, it's been a pretty good house.
Yeah. I see we have Barbara Salvatore. Hi, Barbara.
How you doing?
We're great. How
Good.
about you?
Hanging in?
Yeah, good. I'm glad. And we've got Bob from Deerfield. Hi, Bob.
Hi, Sylvia.
I love your architecture in that room. That is so cool looking.
Yeah, it's all wood cut from the property too.
No, wow, that's amazing.
With a lot of work.
You didn't hand cut it, I'm guessing.
Well, chainsaw,
You cut the wood yourself?
yes.
Oh my gosh. You're amazing, Bob. When did you do that?
It's been 15 years now, and we had a local sawmill guy come and take the logs and turn them into timbers.
How long did they dry before you used them?
Between 1 and 2 years.
Wow,
And
Bob, amazing.
some of those timbers, when they were wet, took 5 people to carry. But eventually, after they were dry, 2 people could handle them, some of the larger ones. So, yeah, so we'll have to invite you over one of these days.
I need to come over and see this for myself. Absolutely.
Yes.
Dave Pierce checking in.
Hi, Dave. How are you?
Doing good.
That's awesome. Are you staying cool in Goffstown?
Not when I'm outside cutting brush on the rail trail.
No, I imagine not.
I'm doing preparatory work for a project that will be done next summer, just getting ready for it.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's good. And I see Peter Capano. Hi, Peter. And you're muted in case you said hi.
Yes, I see that I am. Very good. Good morning.
Good morning.
David, where's the extension of the trail? Where you been clearing?
Do you know where the former Villa Augustina School is?
Yes.
Across the street, across Mass Road from that is a clear field between Mass Road and the old former railroad corridor. Well, that field has been approved last month for 41 age-restricted condominiums. As part of the condition of approval of that plan, the contractor's required to build 900 feet of the abutting rail trail.
Oh, nice.
He's connecting 2 sewer lines into the sewer line that's buried beneath the rail trail, and he's also building 2 footpaths for the enjoyment of his future residents to enjoy the park that is behind their property. So since he'll be marketing this property in selling of his condominiums, we felt it would be appropriate that he would finish building the trail.
Yeah, that's great. That's good. I've been on that trail a few times this year. I just finally picked up a trail bike and I enjoy that Goffstown ride very much.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, it's fun.
Sylvia,
We're
Yes.
65% built and 35% left to go. But it's all passable.
somehow with Southern New Hampshire planning, I need you to change my name. It won't open up
when I go to the block, I change it ordinarily. It doesn't give me an option to
All
change
right,
my name.
hold on, I'm trying to find you.
It says New England Entomological Society, which is
Oh,
all well and good, but that's not today.
I did see that. Oh, there you are.
And I've changed it countless times and I have no idea why it's locked.
Must be a default somewhere.
Yeah, I haven't been in there to find out. I haven't been a leader for a while.
So
Come on.
let's see, we had a couple of phone numbers in here. Let's see, so we have 2 phone numbers. I wonder if someone could identify themselves there.
Sure, Sylvia, this is Mark Sooner from New Boston on 361 number.
Okay,
Sylvia, it's Peter Griffin, 2940.
okay, hold on. Okay. Oh my goodness, how did that happen? 2940. And that's Peter. Okay, great. I think we're still getting a few folks and I'm still marking my cheat sheet on who all is here. Wow. If everyone can mute themselves when unless they're chatting. I'm gonna mute that one. All right, let's see. So, is it time? It's 11:32. Where's my friend Jeff? Are you there, Jeff? I saw John O'Connor. Yep, there you are. Hi, John. Let's see. Deb Levens is here. Let's see, anyone from Auburn? I didn't see anyone from Auburn.
2 people from Auburn are excused, so we probably won't get them.
All right. There's Alfred from, Linda Kuhnhart is usually here.
Yeah, she's excused as well.
Okay. There's Brian from Londonderry. Alfred, let's see, who do we have? Oh, did we have Brian Lord, our newest member?
I'm here. Good to see you all. Thanks for having me.
Hi, Brian. All right. So back to Jeff. Do we have Jeff from Derry here? I don't see him. What's our time? 11:33. Peter Griffin, we may have to call on you as vice chair to open the meet. Hold on, we have someone coming on an iPhone. Jeff, is that you from Derry?
Looks like he's still connected.
He's still connecting? All right, I'm still trying to get everyone on. So while our friend Jeff is connecting, let's see, I saw Joanne Duffy and David from Goffstown. Anyone else from Goffstown? And Hooksett, I saw Dick Marshall and I saw Mark. Is Cutler on? Cutler sneak in? No? Londonderry, I have Brian, Deb, and Arthur. Anyone else from Londonderry? Manchester, I have Peter and Ray. We have Mark from New Boston. Tom Clow from where? Did you make it? No. Oh, there's Barbara Griffin coming. Haven't seen Barbara in a little while. Hi, Barbara from Goffstown. And then I've got, did John Hiltz make it today?
I'm here, Linda.
Okay, great. Thanks, John. And I've got Peter Griffin. So Jeff from Derry, did you make it?
I see Jeffrey's iPhone there, but I don't think.
Where do you see his iPhone?
He's right under Bill DeShato.
How do you see it and I don't? Bill DeShato, here. He's having technical difficulties. All right, so Peter, are you there from Wyndham? Oh, maybe I muted him and he needs to unmute. Hold on. I'm sorry, we're having some
Okay, I'm here.
All right,
Uh,
good.
Unfortunately, I lost the copy of the agenda, so you're going to have to guide me through it. So,
All right, what I can do is read that.
first item, I believe, is opening the meeting for the MPO. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're gonna read the emergency thing. Is that all right?
Yes, please, if you could do that.
All right. So the chair and now the vice chair of, of Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission has found that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12 pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, the SNHPC and committees thereof are authorized to meet electronically. And I think I'm going to just stop there. I think that's enough. We have multiple ways of zooming in and telephoning. But I will say our meeting ID is 815-8282-2437. All right, Jeff, so you can call to order the MPO.
Jeff or Peter?
Sorry, Peter. Yeah.
Okay, let's call to order this meeting of the MPO. Can we have a motion to accept the minutes of our last MPO meeting?
So moved.
All right, that is exciting that you're so anxious to move forward, but what we're going to do is, first of all, remember, you have to say your name when you do a motion, but also we're going to do a roll call after the move. And just to be clear, that was Dick Marshall from Hooksett, right, Dick?
Right.
And we do need a second.
And we'll need a second.
Yeah, Peter from Manchester, I'll second it. And Sylvia, we don't need a roll just to open the meeting. Just the first one would be on the minutes.
Yeah, that's what we're doing.
Okay.
I'm with you. All right, so this is an action for the minutes, and it actually ends up being a roll call simultaneously. So from Bedford, we have Bill DeShaco.
Hi, I'm here.
And you're good on the minutes, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Barbara Salvatore.
Yes to both.
Brian Lord.
Might want to abstain.
I'm here and I'll abstain from the minutes, first meeting.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Candia, we have Dick Snow.
I'm here, temporarily unmuted, yes on both.
Thank you, Dick. And from Chester, we have Andrew Haddock.
Yes on both.
And I didn't see if Deb Munson made it. Okay, not hearing Deb. I'll move on. Let's see, from Deerfield, we have Bob Cody.
Yes.
Anyone else from Deerfield? Is Fred here today? No. From Derry, we have John O'Connor.
Yes on both.
Thank you, John. And Richard Tripp.
I'm here, but I'll abstain on the minutes.
Thank you. From Francistown, we have Alfred Eisenberg. Alfred, you just have to unmute yourself. Or just give me a thumbs up. I can visually see you. Thumbs up. Thank you. From Goffstown, we have Joanne Duffy. Joanne, you just have to unmute yourself.
Sorry. Aye.
Hi. Thanks, Joanne. Good to see you here. Barbara Griffin.
Good morning. Abstain on the minutes.
Thanks, Barbara. Good to see you here too. David Pierce.
Yes, I'm present. Yes, on the minutes.
Thank you. Hooksett, I saw Cutler Brown sneak in.
Yep, yes on both.
Thanks, Cutler. Good to see you. And Mark Shagnon.
Yes, on both.
Thank you. Dick Marshall.
Yes, on both.
Londonderry, we have Brian Battaglia.
Yes, on both.
Thanks, Brian. Deborah Levins.
Present, yes.
Thanks, Deb. Arthur Rugg.
Art, present and yes.
Sorry, Art. Good to see you. Manchester, we have Peter Capano.
Good morning, and I approve the motion.
Thank you. And of course, Ray Clement. Ray, you have to unmute yourself.
Yes on both.
Thanks, Ray. New Boston, we have Mark Sunan. Mark, what happened to you? Maybe I have to undo something. Let's see. Mark, unmute. Okay, Mark.
Present and approve.
Thanks, Mark. Let's see. Wyndham.
Peter, yes on both.
Okay, Peter, yes on both. Why did that not name itself? I have you there. Okay, and let's see. We have William Rose from DOT.
Yes to both.
Thanks, William. So I'm going to start muting everyone again because I can hear a lot of back. Holy cow. Jeffrey's phone. Jeffrey's iPhone, is that Jeff Moulton from Derry?
Yes, but I don't know if you can hear me.
Now
Can
I
you
can
hear me?
hear you. Yeah.
I've had some Microsoft problems trying to get on Zoom. I decided to upgrade everything and it's still going on. But, so I had to come in on my phone.
Okay. The phones provide a lot of feedback, so I may end up muting the phones.
Yeah, I'll mute it.
Okay, great. All right, so if you suddenly find yourself muted, don't take it personally. I'm just trying to make sure there's not a lot of feedback. And let's see, there's a phone number that ends in 4905. Could that person identify themselves?
That's me, it's Jeff.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Jeff. I'm gonna rename, that's so weird. It comes in twice.
Hey, Linda, you missed me on the roll call. This is John Hills from Wyndham.
Sorry. And this is Sylvia, just for the
I'm
record.
sorry, Sylvia. Thank you.
We look so alike, and we're practically twins, especially in height.
I'm still new. I claim ignorance.
No, it's all good. All right, sorry, John, my bad. And we got William Rose. If I missed any voting member, please say hello now. Okay, good. And that includes, well, Jeff Moulton, we already covered you. Thank you. All right. Next, that was the minutes. Now, so just to acknowledge a moment of silence here for the Derry commissioner. He was a commissioner for 6 years here and very active on Derry as a volunteer planning board, and I imagine other boards, but that was Frank Barkowitz. And I didn't know if Jeff Moulton or John, if you wanted to say anything about Frank?
Yes, he will be terribly missed in Derry, so we want to thank you for recognizing him. He was also our secretary. I am now the chairman of the planning board, and Frank was our secretary there. He was very, very instrumental on a lot of the subcommittees, and especially when we did site walks, he would always be there with his camera and document everything. And so that really helped a month and a half later when the site plan came back for review again. So he will be terribly missed. His wife Joan, and we sorry for them, and may he rest in peace. And I again thank you from Derry for you recognizing him.
Yeah, of course. Any old business? All right, seeing none, I'm gonna have, let's see, let's make sure I can get this up there correctly. For Nate, where is it? Here we go. All right, so let's get this. So we're just gonna share screen. If everyone could acknowledge screen two. Can you see the PowerPoint, and is the size okay if you see it? I got a thumbs up from John
Yes.
Connor. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. All right, here comes our friend Nate.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm glad everybody can see the screen, and we'll dive right in. It seems like just a few months ago, we were wrapping up the current 10-year plan, which is the 2031 to 2030 or 2021 to 2030 10-year plan. And amazingly, the time is already upon us to embark on the next 10-year plan update. And amazingly, that is the 2023 to 2032 10-year plan. So I'm going to walk through for the next few minutes that process that we're going to go through to update the 10-year plan and talk about timelines and schedules and all of that good stuff. If my slideshow advances, which it may not want to. Okay, I think we're good. All right. So just as a reminder, for those of you who are new to the commission, we work with our colleagues around the state at the other regional planning commissions, as well as our partners at the state level with New Hampshire DOT under state law, RSA 22899 and RSA 240. We work with the New Hampshire DOT to develop the 10-year plan. And the 10-year plan is basically the state's capital improvement plan, so to speak, for surface transportation infrastructure over the next 10 years. We update the plan every 2 years. And as I mentioned, this next update is going to cover 2023 to 2032. So for those of you who have been on the commission for a while, you've been through a few 10-year plan updates, if not more, with us. For those of you who are new, this might be your first one. So you'll be hearing a lot more about the 10-year plan over the next few months, but today is just kind of the overview. We talk a lot about different plans and programs that we're involved with here at the commission. And just, I always show this slide just to show how these things kind of work together. So we have our long-range transportation plan, and our current long-range transportation plan goes out to 2045. That's looking at needs of the region in the medium to long term over the next 20 to 25 years. And then from that long-range plan, and working with our municipalities, we advance projects towards construction. And in the first step of that in New Hampshire is this 10-year transportation improvement plan. So we're going more from concept towards construction as we move from the long-range plan to the 10-year plan. When a project is in the 10-year plan, it's essentially a long-term commitment of funding for that project. The state is committing that it's going to fund that project within the next 10 years. And then we also have our TIP, which we talk about a lot. We call it our TIP, our Transportation Improvement Program. That's a 4-year federal requirement. But here in New Hampshire, our TIP is essentially the first 4 years of the 10-year plan. So we meet that federal requirement by working through the state 10-year plan process. So this 10-year plan process in the middle here at the state level, our state requirement is really essential and crucial to the entire process in New Hampshire for programming and constructing transportation projects. So when we talk about the TIP and we talk about the 10-year plan and talk about the long-range plan, this slide really shows how they work together. I showed this slide every cycle, and it seems to be a good explainer for how projects move from concept to construction. So for this 10-year plan, basically on the fiscal considerations, we're looking at the same as we did in the last 10-year plan. So once again, New Hampshire DOT has allocated $50 million for regional projects in this 10-year plan update cycle. Generally speaking, new projects would be programmed in the final 2 years. Those are what we call the 2 out years of the 10-year plan. So for this 10-year plan, new projects would generally go in line in the back of the 10-year plan. So they'd be programmed for construction either in 2031 or 2032. And once again, just as with the last 10-year plan update, our estimated allocation for projects here in our region, in the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission region, is $8.55 million. So that's exactly the same as it was in the last 10-year plan update cycle. So no change there. We're going to continue to provide in this update cycle, provide New Hampshire DOT with a set of project priorities to utilize that $8.55 million in 10-year plan funding. So how do we evaluate projects? Again, for those of you who have been on the commission for a few cycles and have seen 10-year plan update process before, this will be a refresher. For those of you who are new, this will be new. All of the regional planning commissions, all 9 regional planning commissions around the state, use the same set of criteria to evaluate and prioritize projects for the 10-year plan. The difference is that those criteria are weighted individually by each region to reflect the unique needs and priorities of that region. Here in the Southern New Hampshire region, we place additional weighting emphasis, for instance, on congestion reduction than our colleagues in the North Country. Our colleagues at the North Country Council don't have the congestion issues that we deal with in this part of the state. So our colleagues up north likely weight congestion reduction lower than we do, just because our challenges and our needs are different in the transportation system in this part of the state than theirs are. One thing that's new here, and I'll highlight some of the changes in just a moment, is that following the completion of the last 10-year plan process, the 9 regional planning commissions working with New Hampshire DOT began a collaborative process to review and update the criteria. Typically every few years we step back and take a look at the criteria, see if anything is missing from the criteria, and add those considerations accordingly. We did that over the past few months, and some of the changes that were made to the criteria include the following. There is a new equity and environmental justice sub-criterion. One of our federal level emphasis areas is making sure that we are programming transportation projects and transportation investments with federal dollars, and that those programming of those dollars is considering equity and environmental justice considerations for what are called traditionally underserved populations. So this is something that our federal partners are always looking to make sure that we are doing and that we're in compliance with. We at the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission, as do our colleagues at other MPO areas, we have what's called a Title VI policy. And our Title VI policy identifies the underserved populations. Those tend to be low income, minority, and limited English proficiency populations in the region and where they're at. And we need to make sure that we are taking their needs into account when programming federal transportation dollars. So in order to more explicitly demonstrate to our federal partners and our state partners that we are considering that in our project selection process, a new criterion has been added specific to equity and environmental justice concerns. So, but in addition to that, we've included a couple of new considerations. There's a lot of good work happening around the state with the public health community, thinking about transportation investments from a public health perspective. Different regions around the state have community health improvement programs, or CHIPS, that have been developed by their hospitals and healthcare sector. Those CHIPS often reference transportation infrastructure needs, active transportation needs, that address different public health considerations. So now there's a more explicit connection between the work that the public health sector is doing and our transportation project selection process, as well as air quality. And we'll be talking a lot about air quality in the second item of this agenda today, but air quality is one of the explicit considerations under this new criterion. There's also been a new criterion added for accessibility, looking at whether a project incorporates universal design considerations to ensure that people that have mobility impairments or visual impairments, hearing impairments, or any other disability can fully access and utilize the facility. And whether a project incorporates accessibility upgrades that were identified in a local, regional, or statewide ADA transition plan. Many municipalities have transition plans. The state has a transition plan. So if there's a project that is implementing something that is a specific accessibility need that's identified in one of those ADA transition plans, we want to make sure that our project selection process is connected to that. And whether a project improves coordination between transportation service providers, between different modes of transportation to improve access to essential services. So that's what's under this new accessibility criterion. There's also a new criterion focusing on economic development. That's one thing that was missing from our previous criteria. Through a lot of discussion and consideration around the state, we've added a new criterion this time for local and regional economic development, looking at a project's consistency with economic development plans, like SEDS documents, for instance, and how projects improve access to major employment and tourism destinations. And then also included in the economic development category is freight mobility. We have a freight mobility consideration in the previous criteria, so this is being carried forward somewhat, but it's been expanded to consider the critical urban and critical rural freight corridor recommendations that all of the regional planning commissions provided about 1.5 years ago. And if you remember, back in that time, I think in early 2018, early to mid 2018, we had a couple of different detailed discussions here within our MPO about what freight corridors we were going to recommend to the state for inclusion in the state freight plan. So we want to make sure that that work is not lost. And so even if something is included in the state freight plan or not, any of those recommended critical urban or critical rural freight corridors could potentially garner credit or points in each of these in this criterion. The natural hazard resiliency criterion has been expanded. So now there will be more explicit consideration about whether a project mitigates the risk from a known hazard, mitigation being basically removing the infrastructure from a known hazard area so that it's no longer affected by that potential hazard, or whether a project adapts to a known hazard. So like riverbank armoring along an area that's known to have erosion, where a road is threatened by erosion, would be adapting to that known hazard moving the road completely away from the river would be mitigating that natural hazard. And then also there's some considerations that have been incorporated into this to look at what local hazard mitigation plan priorities are and make sure that there is some connection and reference between all of the work that's happening at the local level with local hazard mitigation planning and the 10-year plan process. And my computer has, oh, there we go. So our technical advisory committee at their last meeting, so for those of you who are new to the MPO, we have a technical advisory committee that provides advice and recommendations to the MPO for their consideration. So we call them our TAC, T-A-C. So our TAC at their last meeting spent the majority of their meeting going through a weighting exercise, looking at all of the different criteria that we evaluate 10-year plan projects from. They did some surveying leading up to that meeting and had a detailed discussion about what they thought the emphasis areas for the different criteria should be and what weighting should be applied to those criteria to reflect the needs of the region. This slide shows what they came up with. This is what they unanimously adopted. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time walking through the individual weightings here because this is just a tool that our TAC will use to make a recommendation for project priorities to all of you. Ultimately, you can change or modify or revise or accept the TAC's recommendations as you see fit. But what you see on the screen here is what our TAC came to consensus on for how they would recommend project priorities to you. And again, you're not beholden to the TAC's recommendations, but we certainly would hope that you would consider them carefully when they do come. And they will come later on in this process, as I'll talk about in a moment. A reminder, just like the last 10-year plan process, we are required to conduct engineering review for all projects that are going to be included in the 10-year plan to make sure that scoping and cost estimating is as refined as it can be. So we're putting defensible cost estimates in the 10-year plan. So we had been working for much of the past 2 years with an on-call engineering consultant. We did a whole RFQ and solicitation process 2 years ago. We hired an engineering firm called VHB to be our on-call engineer, and they helped us through the last 10-year plan process with scoping and estimating projects for the 10-year plan. That was a 2-year contract, which expired June 30th. So we now need to go through the process again of putting a new RFQ out and selecting an on-call engineering consultant for the next 2 years. So we have put that RFQ out on the street, so to speak. We have sent invitations to 8 different engineering firms for their consideration. We have published a notice of the availability of the RFQ in the Union Leader last week, I believe, and we've also published it on our website. So we're hoping to get a number of responses to that RFQ and hoping to have our engineer on board for the next 2 years by hopefully the end of September. So I think responses to the RFQ are due at the end of the 3rd week of August, I believe. We'll go through an interview and scoring process. We have our TAC has appointed a subcommittee to work with our staff to review and score proposals from the firms who respond. And hopefully we get through that process and we're able to award a contract by the end of September, at which point our on-call engineer will dive right into evaluating projects for this 10-year plan cycle. So that's a good segue into what our schedule is looking like for the 10-year plan. So this week, we will be sending out solicitation correspondence to all of our municipalities in the region for this 10-year plan update cycle. That correspondence will ask communities to review and reaffirm the projects that are on the 10-year plan right now, make sure that those are still needs and priorities for the communities. ask communities to make sure that the amount of funding that's programmed for the projects in their communities is still appropriate. And if additional funding is needed, now is the time to have that discussion during the 10-year plan update process. And then notably, and what tends to get the most attention is we ask communities in that correspondence to submit any new project needs they may have for 10-year plan consideration. So we'll be asking communities to take a look at what's currently on the 10-year plan, make sure that's still a priority, make sure that the funding that's currently programmed for projects is still adequate. And beyond that, asking communities to submit any new project needs they may have to us. So we're going to give a little more than 45 days for communities to get back to us. So we're going to ask for responses to that by Tuesday, September 15th. So the middle of September is when we're going to be looking for responses. In late September and through October of 2020, we will begin to engage our new on-call engineering consultant, whatever firm that may be, to begin taking a look at those 10-year plan projects and helping us to refine the scope and get defensible cost estimates for those projects. It's a pretty aggressive timeline this time, in particular that New Hampshire DOT is asking for a short list, I would call it, of candidate projects. So kind of our short list of where we think our priorities are going to be in this 10-year plan update by November 6th. We're not beholden to those being our final priorities, but essentially they're asking for a short list, which may be a few projects beyond, 2 projects beyond what we ultimately program. So that will be our discussion at the MPO level, one of our discussions at the MPO level at our end of October meeting as we lead to that November 6th deadline. And then December to February is the New Hampshire DOT's time to review the work and scoping and cost estimating that have been done by our on-call engineering consultant. And during that time, we have discussions with our colleagues at New Hampshire DOT about, you know, how the 10-year plan is shaping up and what we think is going to be going in, and kind of working out all of the details. And then our firm deadline for submission of project priorities to New Hampshire DOT is March 31st, 2021. So that's when we need to go from the short list to the final set of priorities, is March 31st, 2021. So, you know, it's not you know, there are a lot of similarities to the last 10-year plan update process here. But the thing I think to bring back to all of your communities today is that correspondence from us, that solicitation correspondence, is coming this week. So please, and we have been giving communities a heads up that the 10-year plan correspondence was coming and asking them to start thinking about their project submissions if they have any. So that is coming, and again, the deadline that we're going to ask communities is to get us their 10-year plan project submissions by September 15th. And as always, our staff is here to help any community that wants to put a 10-year plan project submission in. Technical assistance is available here with our staff to help to provide whatever data or information or technical assistance a community may need in putting together a 10-year plan application. So as always, it's going to be interesting to see what comes in this year. And you know, we look forward to going through the update process. And with that, I see it's already about 10 after 12, so I'll wrap up this item on the agenda. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Nate, it's Peter Griffin from Windham. I have 2 questions. At a recent meeting, we were fortunate to have Victoria Sheen, the DOT Commissioner, be a speaker. And she spoke about I-93 and its current state of being, so to speak, that it's expected to be completed within the next year and a half, let's say. I could be off on that. And I asked her the question about when they expected 93 to be at capacity, and she gave a figure of 2030 to 35. Other business people I've spoken to who thought it could be earlier than that. Based on the time frame that that you have laid out today, and the fact that Victoria Sheehan has said that 93 is not expected to be widened again, are there any discussions beginning to develop about what is life like, transportation life like in New Hampshire after 93 is at capacity? And then second question, it's been reported in a number of publications that Pan Am is up for sale. Now, this has been floated for years, but this seems to be much more serious this time around. Pan Am owns all of the, if they don't own all of the active freight corridors in New Hampshire, they own access to the DOT-owned corridors in New Hampshire, or even those corridors that they own, that is owned by DOT, they retain freight rights after the corridor was sold to DOT. Are there any discussions about being more active in talking to the new owner, if it comes to fruition, about how we can build freight rail in New Hampshire?
Both good questions, Peter. We have not had any discussions yet. We're kind of, in the same boat as everyone else, trying to discern what's going to happen on the Pan Am side, whether a sale will go through, who the potential suitors for that would be. I don't know if anybody at New Hampshire DOT has spoken directly with Pan Am or what their thought process is as it relates to this, although it's something that we're going to be keeping a close eye on. As it relates to I-93, the finalization of that project, I believe, is supposed to happen by the end of, or at least the construction phase of that project is supposed to happen by the end of, I believe, fiscal 21, if not the beginning of fiscal 22. So the construction phase of that project is rapidly approaching completion. The debt service phase of the I-93 project will continue for a number of years to come. So you will see debt service projects for elements of the I-93 expansion throughout the forthcoming 10-year plan, as you already see in the current 10-year plan. As it relates to capacity issues, the project's not done yet, so it's hard to say. I do remember Commissioner Sheehan saying that she had anticipated early to mid 2030s for capacity. Interestingly, at that time, when we had the commissioner, the capital corridor study was not moving forward. It is now in the project development phase, so it'll be interesting to see what sort of demand numbers come out of that project development phase and where that ends up and what they may end up pursuing in terms of implementing or not implementing the capital corridor. But I haven't had any further discussions, nor have I heard anything from New Hampshire DOT considering, looking at mid 2030s for when I-93 would reach capacity, or what the department's future plans for I-93 are in the long term beyond completing the construction in the next 12 to 18 months or so. I guess I would defer any additional comments on that end to William Rose at New Hampshire DOT, who I think is on the call today, if he has anything he wanted to add to the DOT's thought process about either Pan Am or long-term needs of 93.
Thanks, Nate. Great questions, and I will have to get back to you on both. I'm confident that there's been conversations, but none that I've been a party to.
Hey, Nate, I had a question. We see a lot of planning and cost estimating going on, but do we ever see any feedback on what the actual results were for projects, say, recently completed or ongoing projects versus what was budgeted, to use that as kind of a tool for future estimating?
Yeah, the DOT does maintain a database of bid results and construction costs, and they do use that data to refine their cost estimating to some extent. So there is data that's collected about actual bid and construction costs, and that data is mined and used by the department to refine their cost estimates. You know, for our on-call engineer, they have access to the same database that DOT maintains. In the last cycle, for all of the 10-year plan projects that we had, we had one of our engineers' estimates was increased by a few $100,000. That was the Wyndham project, the safety project at 28 and Ralston Road in the town of Wyndham. Our engineer had estimated that a culvert could be replaced in kind at that location, and DOT's cost estimators had been concerned that the brook was an impaired waterway and that the culvert would need to be upgraded to a bridge structure. So we got some feedback, you know, from our cost estimates in the last cycle. You know, that was helpful. But like I say, they do mine that bid results and construction cost database to refine their cost estimating.
Well, at least for me, that would be of interest sometime in the future if we could see how we do. But,
sure. Any other questions on the 10-year plan? Okay. Sylvia, do you think you might be able to pull up my other, I think I'm next on the agenda too, so my other, I'm not great at the screen sharing with two screens.
I think.
3 screens.
Yeah, I think we'll do it a little differently on the next one. Let's see.
Oh, I need the.
That's not it, is it?
I need the one in the bottom corner, bottom left corner.
This?
Yeah.
Can everybody see this now?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, good. So we've got it so where we can see it too. All right. And you see it's not too big. Is it just right? Dave Pierce, is that looking okay?
It's not in presentation mode.
I'd like to remind all the other viewers that at the top margin of their screen, there's a menu they can open about the options for increasing or decreasing the slides.
Sylvia, you're sharing the
left
PowerPoint
screen, I think.
presentation window, not the presentation itself. You gotta stop share, re-share the right window.
Well, I didn't want to share this because then the rest of us can't see it.
Oh.
It's not up there. Because we couldn't really see the presentation. That's why I thought we could use this.
They can only see that though. They can't see this now. You don't see full screen.
We see all the menus and stuff that's unnecessary.
Oh, okay. Hold on. We'll get this right. Oh, here's the stop share. All right, let's try again. Where is it? This is it?
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
Is it, do you still see the menus?
No, that's good.
We're good, I think.
Okay, good.
So everybody sees a title slide that says CMAQ Mobile Source Carbon Monoxide Reduction Target. Correct?
Yes.
All right, good.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so I will. I'll try to be, you know, fairly quick here. This is a little bit more esoteric, so to speak, a bit in the weeds. So I'll try to make it as straightforward as possible. Yeah, it's 12:19. Okay. Well, there we go. Okay. So just as a reminder, we are required under federal regulations, both that were established in what we call the MAP 21 Act and continued in the Fixing America's Surface Transportation or FAST Act, which is what we're under right now. We are required to use performance measures to work towards specific targets in support of national goals for transportation in all federally funded programs. So I know you've, for those of you who have been on our MPO for a while, you recall, you know, our performance measures. Just as a reminder, we're not going to talk about any of these today because you've already adopted them. We have safety performance measures. We adopt those annually. Those were last adopted January 28th of this year. We have bridge and pavement condition performance measures that we adopted in October of 2018. We have system performance performance measures that we also adopted in October of 2018. We have transit asset management performance targets that we adopted in June of 2017. So we've already done a lot of adopting of performance measures, but there's one more that we have not yet adopted that we need to adopt. So there's one more performance measure that applies to us that we haven't taken care of yet. And our colleagues at the Federal Highway Administration recently reminded us in Nashua RPC of our responsibility to adopt a target for this. And this is what's called the CMAQ Mobile Source Emissions Reduction Target for Carbon Monoxide. So what that means and why it applies to us is that the city of Manchester, under federal air quality regulations, is what's called a limited maintenance plan area, or what we just call a maintenance area for carbon monoxide. And the city of Manchester has been a maintenance area for carbon monoxide for the better part of the past 20 years or so. That designation is expected to end January 29th of 2021, at which point this performance measure will no longer apply to us. But as long as the city of Manchester is a carbon monoxide maintenance area, then it does apply to us. So there are two carbon monoxide maintenance areas in the state of New Hampshire, the city of Manchester and the city of Nashua. So we need to adopt a performance measure for carbon monoxide reductions from the CMAQ program because of that. And so do our colleagues at the Nashua Regional Planning Commission. They also need to adopt one because Nashua is a maintenance area for carbon monoxide. So that's why this applies to us. We have two options under federal regulations for how we deal with this. Option one is that we can establish, as an MPO, establish our own region-specific target for carbon monoxide reductions resulting from the CMAQ program. The other option is that we can support the state level performance target. In this case, and for many of our performance targets, we have supported the state level performance target. In this particular case, the state target does include some CMAQ projects and emissions reductions from the city of Nashua. So for that reason, we thought it would make more sense for us to establish a region-specific target just based on what our CMAQ projects are in the city of Manchester, rather than having Nashua projects included in our target, because we don't have any authority over the programming of CMAQ projects in the city of Nashua. That's not something that we can directly influence. But we can directly influence CMAQ projects in the city of Manchester. So having a region-specific target that is focused just on the projects in the city of Manchester seemed to make sense at the staff level for us. So that's what we are recommending. What are those projects? Well, there are four CMAQ projects in the city of Manchester. And each of these CMAQ projects, actually, as part of the development of the project, we performed air quality analyses for all of these four different projects that actually quantified how much carbon monoxide would be reduced per day after these projects were implemented. So one of the CMAQ projects dates back a number of years. It's the construction of the South Manchester Rail Trail from Gold Street to Perimeter Road. And as part of that air quality analysis, there was no carbon monoxide reduction calculated or claimed. So nothing there. Then the three more recent projects, so from the 2018 cycle or 2017 cycle, was implementing an adaptive signal control system on Granite Street and upgrading signal performance on South Willow Street. There's a significant carbon monoxide reduction resulting from that project. of 66 and a little more than 66.5 kilograms per day of carbon monoxide. And then the two most recent CMAQ projects, both funded in last year's round, were to construct a northbound right turn lane and modify lane utilization at the South Willow Street and Weston Road intersection. That had a little over 2 kilograms per day of carbon monoxide reduction. And then the one near Dairyfield School, which is constructing a roundabout at the River Road and Bicentennial Drive intersection. And that's 0.6 roughly kilograms per day of carbon monoxide. So if we take the sum of all of those carbon monoxide reductions from the CMAQ projects in the city of Manchester, that is 69.233 kilograms per day of carbon monoxide. And that would be what we propose to you all to endorse as a target for carbon monoxide reductions resulting from CMAQ projects in our city of Manchester carbon monoxide maintenance area. The state's calculation for their target is pretty much exactly the same methodology as this. They just have a couple of Nashua projects included in there. So this is basically following the state's methodology for the statewide target, just taking out the Nashua projects and focusing solely on Manchester projects. So what we would recommend to you all today is that we adopt a regional CMAQ emissions reduction target for carbon monoxide of 69.233 kilograms per day. And so I will, if anybody would like to make such a motion, we would welcome that. Otherwise, I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any for further discussion.
Move to approve as presented.
Can you run the roll call, Sylvia? I'm going to ask Sylvia to step back in and run the roll call.
I have a question.
Sure.
Could you ask them to announce the question?
What happens if we don't adopt this?
If we don't adopt this, if we don't adopt a performance target for the CMAQ congestion target, we're going to get what's called a corrective action from the Federal Highway Administration against our MPO. And
all right.
We generally like to avoid getting any corrective actions against our MPO. So
that's good. That's good.
Yeah. Okay.
I understand.
Yep.
Is there any way of verifying that we meet this goal?
Well, that's a good question. There is some monitoring that is supposed to be happening, and we can talk with our colleagues at New Hampshire DOT about this. I would keep in mind and note, as I did earlier, that we don't think following January of 2021 that this performance measure is going to apply to us anymore. So
I have one more question.
Yes.
Let's see. Did I ask if we measure this?
Yes, and that's something we will talk with our colleagues at New Hampshire DOT's AMPS office about in terms of how to track and report this.
All right. So what if we don't meet this goal?
Yeah, I'm not aware of any penalties, so to speak. All
right. Thank you very much.
Yep.
I have a quick question, Mr. Chairman. It's Peter from Manchester. The current situation for commuting in Manchester, especially in the Granite Street area, has changed with the COVID situation. I think of Southern New Hampshire University and South Commercial Street. That intersection isn't what it used to be volume-wise. Does the 66.547 number take that reduction in traffic into account? And is there any problem with maybe changes that have occurred?
Interestingly, Peter, the almost all of the carbon monoxide benefits and congestion benefits from that project are actually midday benefits. So it's not, this system does very little to actually, improve peak hour conditions because of the level of congestion that you would normally see there. But it does have substantial carbon monoxide benefits in the midday area. So most of the carbon monoxide reductions that you're seeing here are from the midday period, not necessarily the peak commute period.
Okay, thank you. That's interesting.
Any other, I will yield the driving of the Zoom meeting back to Sylvia for a roll call.
All right, and for the record, that was Richard Tripp with the first question. And it was, right, Peter Capano from Manchester for the second, and it was Dick Snow, correct, Dick, for the motion.
That is correct. I would move that we adopt the recommended number for the CMAQ reduction of CO.
Okay, and a second?
This is Richard Tripp. I second it.
Thank you, Richard. All right, let's go through the roll call. From Bedford, Bill DeShaco.
Aye.
Barbara Salvatore.
Aye.
Brian Lord.
Aye.
Candia, Dick Snow.
Aye.
Chester, Andrew Haddock.
Aye.
Thanks, Andrew.
Deb Munson, I'm here too.
Oh, there you are, Deb. That's great. Thanks, Deb. We have from Deerfield, we have Bob Cody.
Aye.
Thank you. From Derry, we have Jeff.
Aye.
Moulton, John O'Connor.
Yes.
And Richard Tripp.
Yes.
From Francistown, Alfred Eisenberg.
Yes.
Thank you, Alfred. From Goffstown, Joanne Duffy.
Yes.
Thanks, Joanne. Barbara Griffin.
Yes.
Thank you. David Pierce.
Yes.
Thank you. Hooksett, we have Mark.
Yes.
Great. Dick Marshall.
Yes.
Okay. Londonderry, Brian.
Yes.
Deborah Levins.
Yes.
Art Rugg.
Yes.
From Manchester, Peter Capano.
Yes.
Ray Clement. Ray, are you still there? Oh, Cutler Brown from Hooksett, sorry.
Yes.
Thanks, Cutler. Sorry about that. That was Linda keeping me on my toes. And we didn't hear from Ray, so I don't know if he's, let's see, did he unmute him? I don't know what's going on with Ray. He may have dropped off. We don't see him. Okay. New Boston, we have Mark Sooner.
Aye.
Thank you. From Wyndham, Peter Griffin.
Yes.
Great. John Hiltz.
Yes.
Perfect. William Rose from DOT.
I'm going to be an abstention.
Abstention. Okay, no problem. Great. Anybody I miss? All right. That does that. All right. So I'm going to try to figure out how to get back to my agenda. Why is this so big? And show. Okay, that's still end that. All right, great. Sorry, just figuring out my screens here. And let's look at the agenda real quick. I guess we can now adjourn.
Motion to adjourn the MPO. It's Peter.
Thank you, Peter Capano from Manchester. Do I have a
Second,
second?
Deb Levins.
Thanks, Deb. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Okay. We now just need to call to order Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission meeting.
Call to order Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission meeting.
Thanks, Peter.
I don't know if if I'm still on board or if we have our chairman there.
Jeff, are you here still? Oh, there he is. Hi,
As far
Jeff.
as I know, yep.
All right, Jeff, why don't you go ahead and take over
All right, so next item is the meeting minutes of June 23rd, 2020. Do we have a motion to accept?
I'll make a motion.
Motion to accept, Peter Griffin.
Second.
Bill DeShacter. And I guess we do a roll call.
All right, here we go. Bill DeShacco.
Yes.
Barbara Salvatore.
Yes.
Brian Lord.
Abstain.
Abstain. Richard Snow.
Aye.
Thank you. Andrew Haddock.
Yes.
Deb Munson.
Yes.
Thank you. Bob Cody.
Yes.
Jeff Moulton.
Yes.
John O'Connor.
Yes.
Richard Tripp.
I'll abstain.
Abstain, right? Thank you. Alfred Eisenberg.
Yes.
Thank you. He's all the way in Francistown, so it takes a little longer. Sorry, little side joke. Goffstown, we have Joanne.
Aye. Aye.
Thank you,
Here.
Joanne.
I'm not sure what we're voting on.
We're voting on the minutes of the
Oh,
SNHPC.
sorry. Aye.
Okay, great. Barbara Griffin.
Abstain.
Abstain, thank you. David Pierce.
Approve.
Cutler Brown from Hooksett.
Aye.
Mark.
Aye.
Richard.
Yes.
Thank you. Londonderry, Brian.
Yes.
Deborah.
Aye.
Arthur.
Yes.
Thanks, Art.
You're welcome.
Manchester, Peter.
Yes.
Ray. Oh, I'm sorry. I keep going to Ray. He's gone. He's going to get a nice. Oh, you think he's muted?
I do too.
Oh, hold on. I'll come unmute him. Hi, Ray. You're back.
I'm here.
Great. We're just voting on the minutes of the SNHPC.
I can hear it all. I can hear you. Fine.
Okay, so thumbs
Okay.
up. Good. New Boston. Mark.
Aye.
Thanks, Mark. Wyndham, we have Peter Griffin
Aye.
and John Hiltz.
Yes.
Anyone we miss? Okay, great. Well, under new business, we are lucky enough. Sherry, I think, came in. Yeah, I see her. Hi, Sherry. So we have Sherry Godlewski.
Hi, Sylvia.
Hi, from DES. And she's the Resilience and Adaptation Manager with DES, I'm sorry, and who will share examples of work being done in the state to help our communities understand the projected climate change impacts and how to proactively respond. There are many different approaches, resources, and technical assistance from DES and other partners providing scaled and designed to help make us all more resilient to current future impacts. So that was on the staff report. Do you want to go ahead and take over the screen?
Sure.
Sherry, and so far so good.
Okay, there we go.
Can everybody see that okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So if you can mute yourself so there's less feedback, and then we'll listen to Sherry.
All right, thanks, Sylvia, and thanks everybody for inviting me into your meeting today. I'm going to talk about some resilience initiatives going on in New Hampshire, and I'm a Deerfield resident, so you guys are my planning commission. Thank you for the great work that you do. So I'll start with talking about what our agency is engaged in, and back in 2013, we did a department-wide climate initiative, which we started in 2013 and we continue to do today. And what we did, we looked at all of our programs within the agency and looked at things that we could do within our programmatic functions to reduce emissions of carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases by essentially reducing our fossil fuel use so that we could mitigate the impacts of climate change. When we're talking about climate change mitigation, it is about reducing our fossil fuel use and our CO2 emissions. The other thing we looked at throughout our agency is our ability to adapt and more resilient, to prepare ourselves as an agency as well as the communities that we work with for current and future impacts of a changing climate. Now, this initiative is ongoing, and some programs are more engaged in it than others. Others have had to pivot because of more urgent issues like PFOA and PFAS. The drinking water and waste people have been really focused on that. But many of us are still engaged in looking at how we can be more efficient with ourselves and our regulated community. And one of the great examples I'll bring forward here is our Wastewater Engineering Bureau under the guidance of Sharon Null. They are doing great work to help wastewater treatment facilities run more efficiently so that they're reducing their fossil fuel use, but also they're saving money. And that's an ongoing initiative that she's doing a great job at. And in terms of adaptation and resilience, we're all trying to adapt to the impacts that we're seeing from flooding, from heat and drought. And I'll highlight some work being done in the coast. But Julie LaBranche from the Rockingham Planning Commission is going to talk to you folks next month, and she will build on the stuff that I'm setting down here today. So within DES, we're really thinking about climate change and thinking about how we can structure our programs. And in this process, we learn from our staff that they want to learn more about the current science and current projected impacts. So we started this educational series last year called Through a Climate Lens. And in that educational series, we met once a month in our auditorium, and we invited other state agencies to come and listen to the current science and examples of projects being done across our state. That educational series is on hold right now due to the pandemic, but we're talking about picking it up maybe remotely if we can. So keeping ourselves educated on the most up-to-date science and incorporating that into our programs is what this initiative is all about. And now talking a little bit about the coast. In 2013, there was legislation passed to establish a New Hampshire Coastal Risk and Hazards Commission. And this legislation was put forward by Senator David Waters, who is pictured here in the middle of this photo, and he's got on the red tie, if you don't know Senator Waters. He's very interested in this issue, and coastal New Hampshire is very, very vulnerable. And so that's why he established this commission. It was made up of some senators, two representatives. It had folks from the Regional Planning Commission. All state agencies were represented on the commission. There was someone from the insurance industry, Primex, as well as someone from the real estate sector. So we had a lot of good input into this commission's work. And when we established ourselves, the first thing we all agreed on is that we needed to have some sound science that we could use to make future decisions. And so we established a science and technical advisory panel. And you can see in the document on the left is that report that was put together by the Science and Technical Advisory Panel. And this panel looked specifically at projections of sea level rise, storm surge, and extreme precipitation, and how those projections would impact our coast. And the team, the Science and Technical Advisory Panel, was made up of UNH researchers, our climatologist, Mary Stampone, and a representative from the Army Corps. So it was a really strong group of scientists. This information was peer reviewed by external scientists, and now we have this very solid set of information upon which we can work as a commission to put forward some recommendations for action moving forward. And the document you see on the right is our final report that was submitted to the governor and the legislature in November 2016. And that has 35 solid recommendations about how coastal New Hampshire can prepare for these impacts. And this document got bipartisan support. So it was a unanimous agreement amongst all the members of the commission that these recommendations were forward-thinking and necessary to help our coast be more resilient. Coming out of that Science and Technical Advisory panel, and as well as the Coastal Risk and Hazards Commission, Senator Waters at the close of the commission put forward pieces of legislation that were successful. And one of those pieces of legislation required certain state agencies to conduct an audit of their laws governing coastal regions, and we were to determine any changes that needed to be made to enable authorities to take action. And those state agencies were DES, DOT, the Department of Fish and Game, and the Department of Cultural and Natural Resources. And so myself and a colleague actually went through all of DES's statutes, rules, and programmatic policies to check them, to see how responsive they are, and any changes that needed to be made so that we could take actions to prepare for the impacts in our coast. We submitted that report to the governor in November 2018. The second part of that legislation required state agencies planning, siting, and designing projects in coastal and Great Bay regions to reference that Science and Technical Advisory Panel report. So this part of that legislation said, we have this science, now we need to use the science. If we're developing in coastal New Hampshire, we need to do this work based on sound science. So great pieces of legislation, and we thank Senator Waters. He's very active in this area. Another piece of legislation that was passed in 2016 required the Department of Environmental Services to update that STAP, the Science and Technical Advisory Panel report, every 5 years, because as the science changes, there's a lot more research and a lot more evidence. We want to be sure that we have the most up-to-date science available for us in planning. And so we just did that. This is the updated Science and Technical Advisory Panel report, and to make this user-friendly, we put together a coastal flood risk guidance so that there was a guidance on how to use the science. So the science was released last August, and it included projections for storm surge, sea level rise, and extreme precipitation. But in that 5-year period, we've had additional research that documents groundwater induced sea level rise. Groundwater rise induced by sea level, sorry for tripping up there. So as sea level comes up, so does groundwater. And so that science is incorporated into this update, as well as freshwater flooding and tidal currents and high tide flooding. We're seeing high tide flooding in coastal New Hampshire once a week. These photographs, folks, are coastal New Hampshire. You can see in the left document, there's Seabrook Nuclear Power Plant in the background, and this is the marsh coming up and swallowing this road. You can see in the lower part of the photo, the road is almost completely covered by water. This is occurring at high tides, not a storm, not any sort of big events, just our high tides are causing flooding. And in the photograph on the Coastal Flood Risk Summary Guidance, that is Hampton as well, and that's the marsh coming right up around the houses. So it's important for us to have this sound science upon which we can make decisions, as well as this guidance for using the scientific projections. And while you guys aren't really focused in coastal New Hampshire, it's important to recognize that this region of our state provides 35% of the rooms and meals taxes that is distributed to all of us in the state. So it's a very vulnerable area in our state, and a lot of work is being done in coastal New Hampshire. And Julie LeBranch will tell you more about that next month. So back to general information from DES, we did an update of our wetlands rules, and that update was released in 2019. And in it is a new chapter that is focused on coastal lands and tidal waters, requiring projects to do a vulnerability assessment and consider sea level rise and storm surge and the other projections in the Science and Technical Advisory Panel report. Our alteration of terrain program, which I'm sure you're familiar with, this program requires a permit if you're altering any significant amount of land, and it's intended to keep water quality good. So if you're altering a bunch of land with a development or something like that, you need to have a permit to be sure that the runoff coming off your site isn't going to impact water quality. And in 2015, there was a rule revision to this program, And it required permittees to use the most current precipitation data that has been published by the Northeast Regional Climate Center. So we're seeing more extreme precipitation in the state as well as in the country. And we want to have the most current data available for planning projects in the alteration of terrain program permitting process. In 2016, we did another rule revision requiring a 15% increase in extreme precipitation estimates for projects in coastal areas with a lifespan beyond 2050. So if you're designing something that's going to last beyond 2050, you need to incorporate the future precipitation expectations. And now we're working with the Alteration of Terrain program for about a potential update to reflect the 2019 Science and Technical Advisory Panel and coastal flood risk guidance that I just talked to you about. We would like to see more of these rule changes to be more statewide, but we don't have a statewide Science and Technical Advisory Panel report yet. So that's something I would like to see in the future. But I just wanted to let you know some of the things that were going on in our agency as in response to the vulnerability of coastal New Hampshire. This is a statewide initiative and you may be familiar with it. We have established a flood hazards geodatabase, and that is done in partnership with Homeland Security and Emergency Management, our Geologic Service, the DES, as well as regional planning commissions and municipalities. And the intention of this database is to locate hazards that are noted in community hazard mitigation plans and have them geo-referenced. So you can see the different hazards on this database. And then what we want to do is continue to work with regional planning commissions and municipalities to update this database after flood events so we can document repetitive issues. If there's a culvert that's getting blown out repeatedly, we want to know that, and we want to incorporate that into municipal hazard mitigation plans and help with prioritizing culvert replacements. So I'm sure you're familiar with this. This is something that all regional planning commissions were engaged in. And thank you for your work contributing to it. So in terms of what state agencies are doing outside of DES, there is a state government energy committee that looks at energy efficiency and reducing fossil fuel use by state agencies. And this committee was established by executive order, and each state agency has to report annually on how they're doing with decreasing their use of fossil fuels, increasing efficiency, and thereby saving the state money. And you may have noticed that the Division of Motor Vehicles in Concord on Hazen Drive has solar panels on top of it. And our agency has a biomass facility where we burn wood chips for heat in the wintertime. And these two projects were enabled by this state government energy committee. So it's a great committee. Chris Skoglund, my colleague who focuses on this, the mitigation side of climate change, is going to talk to you at a later date, and he'll share more about these initiatives. On the resilience side, we have a state environmental resilience group that's made up of most state agencies, and it's a volunteer group. There's no formal executive order, but we come together periodically to share new developments and ideas on how we as state agencies can help ourselves and the people that we serve be more resilient and adapt to these changes that we're experiencing. And now drilling down farther, there are two regional adaptation work groups that I serve as co-chair for. And one is the New Hampshire Coastal Adaptation Work Group. And in that work group, we work with our 42 coastal communities in the coastal watershed. And then there's the Upper Valley Adaptation Work Group, which is a bi-state initiative in the Upper Connecticut River Valley, made up of representation from New Hampshire side as well as the Vermont side. And in these two work groups, a lot of our focus is helping our municipalities have access to science and understand it so that they can make decisions. In both work groups, we do a number of educational forums and workshops, and we host summits so that we can bring people together to share information and help them learn from each other. Key partners in this, each of these work groups, are our research scientists at both UNH and Dartmouth. We have state agencies, we have our municipal representation, there are some businesses and nonprofit groups. So they're made up of diverse constituents, but large amount of people coming together to help each of these regions be more resilient. And key partners in both of these work groups are our regional planning commissions. So we work with Rockingham and Stratford in the coast. And then in the Upper Valley, we work with the Upper Valley Lake Sunapee Regional Planning Commission, as well as the Two Rivers Ottaquechee Regional Commission out of Vermont. Really key players for us because they have a strong connection with communities, and they give us the straight face test as things we're thinking about in planning. How would that work in a community? So these two work groups are fantastic opportunities and exemplary in our state for us getting to connect with municipalities directly and to help them. And the way we do this is we help them access science and point them to local data so that they can use it to make decisions. We're engaged in providing them technical assistance, and we also really listen to their experiences because they know their communities. They know their communities better than we know their communities. And in that, they have community values that need to be incorporated into the work that they're doing and the things that they are doing to move forward in their plans. We offer experience and volunteer to facilitate meetings and conversations within communities. And as I said, we provide these educational forums. So we listen very intently to our community so we can respond to their needs. And in this process, we have established and we seek to continue to maintain trust with our communities, and we meet them where they are. If they can't make it to a meeting that we're having, we'll go to their meeting. We'll go to the planning board meeting, or we'll go to something that they need. And one thing we've learned from working with all the various communities is one size does not fit all. What works for Goffstown isn't going to work for Manchester necessarily all the time. So we need to be very specific and listen so that we can meet the needs that are presented by the community members who are the experts in their communities. We are not the experts. We're just here to facilitate. So it's rewarding work. I love this work, and I think that you folks also can relate to what I'm talking about, because regional planning commissions are very, very important and as partners for planning for adaptation and resilience. Regional planning commissions do a variety of things for their communities, and I've listed some of them here. You know, we're not asking you to do more. You're busy and you're limited in what you can do, but what we're asking is that you do the work that you do through the climate change lens. So if you're creating an update to a master plan, consider adding a climate change chapter. Or if you're doing zoning, consider thinking about, you know, what's going on in your floodplains. So this is a great opportunity for you as Regional Planning Commission, and we want to support you in doing that work. So if there's any way I could ever help you when you're working with your communities, please don't hesitate to get in touch with me. And when I think about resilience, this is what I think about. I think about all the aspects of our communities. We need to have decisions based on science, and we can't do it alone. So we need to have strong partnerships. So when we're thinking about even COVID-19, we want to work with our public health folks. We want to make sure there's going to be economic vitality in our region. We want to think of our natural systems so that they can sustain us when we're in periods of drought. We want our work to be equitable so that we address everyone in the community, not just a chosen few. And again, to do this consistently means establishing trust and staying engaged. And so this is my view of resilience in New Hampshire. And I think you can all find a part of this that is something that you can resonate with. And so with that, I will turn it over to Sylvia and see if there are any questions. Thank you.
Sylvia, I do have a question. Peter Griffin.
Go ahead, Peter.
A great presentation, and I apologize if I missed what I'm about to ask in your presentation. Have you had any discussions with the real estate industry? It's two questions, actually. Have you had any discussions with the real estate industry along the seacoast as to the effect the flooding, both just day-to-day flooding and the mega storms are having on the valuations of the property, seacoast property? And part two, have you had discussions, for instance, with Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, which is based in Haverhill, but covers areas like Newburyport and the Mass Seaport area, or Southern Maine Planning Commission to develop like a regional understanding of what's happening?
Great question. Thank you for that. We do work with Southern Maine Planning Commission, and we do work with the real estate industry, but we haven't done specific engagement with them. They have been not as interested in engaging with us as we would like them. We did have real estate representation on the Coastal Risk and Hazards Commission, and so there was input from that particular person. But there is national data that shows that the valuation of homes in coastal regions is definitely decreasing. And when you think about the scientific projections for sea level rise and where we're going to be by 2050, that's 30 years from now, and most mortgages are held for 30 years. And so it becomes a question about whether lending institutions are going to want to hold mortgages for properties that may be impacted before the 30-year period. And so short answer, no, we haven't directly worked with the real estate industry at length, but it is something that we are very aware of and trying to keep a finger on and engage them as best as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the group for Sherry? Well, that was really great. And as Sherry mentioned, this is sort of a precursor to the August meeting where we'll continue this whole conversation on climate change and resiliency with our colleague and Rockingham Planning Commission, Julie. So yeah, stay tuned for more excitement. And I think that wraps up our meeting, Jeff.
Right, and we'll continue with the Zoom meetings into August, so yeah.
Oh yeah.
All right.
The difference in August is that we have advertised that this, our commission room here in Manchester will be open to the public. We know that the volunteer driver, no, sorry, wrong one. The public participation plan is in the midst of its 45-day review, and we needed to advertise a public space for that meeting. And so this is open for the public, but we are planning on Zooming that meeting. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're not working under any assumption that there needs to be a quorum in the room or anything. It's just we need to make sure that there's an in-person option for those who wish to participate in person. Otherwise, everybody can participate by Zoom and it's fine.
Yeah, did everybody hear that okay? You can participate. Yeah, and thank you, Barbara, for nodding vigorously. I appreciate that. Yeah, everyone can still participate through Zoom, but this is an option if someone wants to physically be at the meeting here. All right, that said, Jeff?
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded, Deb Levens.
All right, we have Peter Griffin made the motion.
All right, thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the week.
All right, thank you.
Aye, aye. See ya.
Right. Farewell.
Thanks, all.
Bye.
Bye.
Stay healthy.
I think I'm sticking around for, oh no, she got off.
That's interesting about Sherry. Maybe I should send her our vulnerability assessment. Take a look at it.
Yeah, she'd be a good person.
She may not be aware of it.